Sponsored by Dennis J. Courtney, M.D., Director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3002. That's 724-942-3002 for Dennis J. Courtney, M.D.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AM Impact on Your Health. AM Impact on Your Health, where every day our goal is to have you learn at least one thing to help you live better and longer. AM Impact on Your Health, heard each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney, and I'm with you each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9. AM Impact on Your Health, where each day you'll find current medical news, knowledgeable guests, fascinating health topics, and where we do encourage you to call in to join in. Today our featured guest is a guest to, a medical doctor. Yes, he truly is, but he works with another aspect of treating disease, one where you actually heal thyself. And you need to call... hold on one second, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna okay. Excuse me for that slight diversion. We've got a correction to our conundrum this morning. We had a little trouble getting a hold of our guest. Dr. Pieter DeWet is our guest today. He actually called in on another line while I'm speaking to you now. We are going to be able to give him the right number to get him hooked up to the radio station, and he will be our guest today. Heal Thyself, transform your life, transform your health. An interesting approach to treating disease. By the way, he says any disease can be treated by little old you. Very strong statement. The spiritual is heavily embarked upon today. I hope you enjoy our featured speaker today, our guest, Dr. Pieter DeWet. We'll be with him right after our first break. Now, up and coming, and boy, you want to jot these down. We were extremely busy yesterday. Well, I was extremely busy yesterday, lining up a whole host of guests that will be on our airways in the month of December. Now, get ready for this because as it stands right now, here's the way it should be moving forward from today. Now, on Friday, post-Thanksgiving Day Friday, we're going to do a repeat show. Will not be live. It's going to be a repeat show from last Monday with Faye Houston. Now, Faye has that interesting medical history. The word interesting should be in italics, of course, because this lady had a 30-year saga of having terrible symptoms that no one could resolve. Ultimately, the C word came her way. It certainly wasn't without a lot of trial and tribulation by her. I say she has attempted and either improved somewhat or got no better at all with just about every alternative approach that's known. Anyway, we're going to repeat the show with Faye Houston, her book entitled Silent Enemy, Environmental Illness, and One Woman's Search for the Cure. She found that cure, and you'll be really interested in what I consider to be a medical thriller. That's going to be a repeat show for Friday. Then on Monday we're going to have Dr. Stuart Reeves with us. He is representing the company that a caller about 2 weeks ago asked me about. He said, hey, what about this Epicor? You talked about it a lot, and we don't hear about it anymore. Well, I got to tell you, we have always maintained a supply of Epicor here at our office. We still do have it. We have sold it, and there are people that swear by it. I'm bringing it back because you requested it and because, well, it was just time to do it. We're going to be having a big and long discussion about Epicor through a company representative, Dr. Stuart Reeves. That'll be on the 29th, which will be the Monday. So if you're going to go out hunting for Bambi, you're going to miss it. Of course, you can catch it on the archives when you come back in from the woods. Now, flipping to the month of December, things really start to get interesting then. Brian Foltz, a representative for Standard Process, the fellow who filled the shoes of Jimmy Moresic, who you know very well. We had him on our show many times. Brian Fultz is going to be with us on December 1st. Then we're arranging, and it looks like we should be able to pull off Jim Navarro and Beth Clay together. Jim Navarro, of course, the father of Thomas Navarro. The young boy passed away from cancer. The plight of the family and the boy is something that doted our airways, our show, for quite a while back in 2000 and 2001. Anyway, with the movie that was launched and the bill that's going to be launched in Congress, it was time to get Jim and Beth on together. So that's what we're attempting. We'll for sure have Jim, and we're going to try to get Beth Clay, now a lobbyist in Washington, D.C., to be on with us, too. Then on the December 6th show, boy, you're going to be enjoying a young lady I had a chance to meet via the airways yesterday. Her name is Dr. Susan Smith-Jones. Now, she has three of the most common names in the world, but she is one of the most entertaining ladies I think you're ever going to find with respect to talking about, well, all aspects of non-pharmaceutical health. She was brought to my attention by the Olbus Company. We're in that flu season. The use of Epicor and Olbus is something we've been swearing by years. Well, swearing to by years for the last few years. Olbus is going to be represented on the December 6th show with Dr. Susan Smith-Jones. Now, in that same week, on the 10th, you'll never guess who we're going to be able to get on our airways. I talked to her yesterday. Deborah Ray will be back with us. And I said, Deborah, we were all shocked to hear, not that it's in a bad way shocked to hear, we were just shocked to hear you're a married woman now. And she laughed and cackled and carried on a bit. I said, Deborah, we have got to ask you questions concerning your marriage. Everybody wants to know. We all know Deborah Ray here in the Pittsburgh area. You are a Pittsburgher, literally born here, raised here, gone off to bigger and better things, and now you're remarried. We know. All I'll say is the husband of Deborah Ray, his name is Ron, and I said, I'm not asking you any more about this until you come on the show and talk about the entire episode. She said she's been married for over a year now, that was able to slip by us. We didn't know a thing about it. I don't know who would. If I didn't know, who in the heck could know? Anyway, Deborah Ray's going to be with us talking a lot about Fruit of the Spirit, a lot about what she's doing now with her time, which always is something that we speak with Deborah Ray, but never have we heard a word about her marriage. And I said, it's got to be first. We got to talk about it. She laughed. She smiled. I'm sure she smiled, and she said, absolutely, I'll talk about it. So that's one you don't want to miss for sure. We have, by the way, Dr. Perlmutter. Remember I told you we'd get him to come on our show? I've been talking through intermediaries now. I've been talking through his office manager, name's Joe, and I said, you got to bring Dr. Perlmutter back to our airways, especially with this new book, The Power of the Brain, that he's written. And Dr. Perlmutter says, yeah, I absolutely want to come on the show. It looks as though he's so busy in December with speaking engagements that we're trying to line up a January date right now for him to come on the show. But nonetheless, he will be on in the month of January. We just haven't formalized the actual date yet, but it is coming, and I hope you'll be able to be a part of that. You don't want to miss that show. Dr. Perlmutter is prestigiously renowned and recognized as an expert on neurological issues. We've talked to him about so many before, but this new stuff about regenerating neurons and what you do to be able to accomplish that is something in his new book up and coming, and we'll have him there. And that, as it stands right now, is the way December shapes up, and even a look into the new year. And as you can see, I've been a busy little beaver yesterday. Not completely finished in ranging for the month of December, but well on its way, you will have to admit. So, with that being said, and that out of the way, why don't we do this? Why don't we take a short break? And in the interim, I'll hook up with our guest today, who came at a different circuitous route to be able to come on our airways. He should be in the wings awaiting Bill to plug him into me, and I'll plug him into you, and we'll be talking about Heal Thyself and how you handle that and accomplish being able to cure yourself from any, I repeat, any disease. I'm all ears, aren't you? Be right back with Dr. Pieter DeWet. See you then.
You become confused about how best to manage your health. It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instruction, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you are looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, M.D., is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
This Christmas season, give your friends and loved ones the gift of health with a very special gift from Fruit of the Spirit. Fruit of the Spirit combines 14 whole fruits with energizing minerals to give you great tasting, antioxidant-rich liquid nutrition with more health benefits than any other product of its kind. Take advantage of a special offer this Christmas. We will send a beautiful gift pack with a bottle of Fruit of the Spirit, portion glass, book, and brochure to each name on your shopping list for just $29. That's a bottle of Fruit of the Spirit, portion glass, book, and brochure to each name on your shopping list for just $29.
Fruit of the Spirit gift pack is a $57 value. This Christmas season is yours for just $29, shipping and handling not included. Call 1-800-793-8714 with your shopping list, and Fruit of the Spirit will take care of the rest. Call now. That's 1-800-793-8714.
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AIM Impact on Your Health. Heard here on KHB 620 each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney with you today on a Wednesday version of the show, and a special guest today, as they say, comes to us via a circuitous route, but nonetheless, she is either arrived or arriving. Bill, why don't you plug in our guest today? Gentleman, a medical doctor who has taken a different tact, I'm saying very different. I'm going to be all ears today learning about healing thyself to a gentleman, whose his travels in medicine have been a little unique. He's got a private practice. Been practicing wellness medicine since 1997. Owner and medical director of Quantum Healing Institute in Tyler, Texas. And Dr. DeWet graduated from medical school in 1985. Has been a family physician since 1991. Board certified in family medicine and the American Board of Family Medicine. Also, board certified is the American Board of Holistic and Integrative Medicine. A lot of board certifications, even homeopathic certification in integrative medicine in the state of Arizona. That great state is really ahead of everybody. I'm going to tell you that. Anyway, we've got the author of a book that we're going to be groping through today. Heal Thyself, Transform Your Life, Transform Your Health. The author, Pieter DeWet. Pieter, you with us?
Yes, I am, Dennis. It's so nice to be here.
Thank you for finding me. I had some difficulty finding you. But now that that's all over, it's a pleasure to meet you, Doctor, even if it's only through our voices this morning. But in the advanced information I've had, you certainly caught my eye and my mind's eye on a concept that rarely gets touched by conventional medical doctors. And it's so unique that I'd like to first maybe just talk a bit about you. You have traveled a conventional path, and then for some reason, and I find this in all of my alternatively minded colleagues, there's an epiphany. Something happens, and when that something happens, they move down maybe a parallel road, but nonetheless a different road than their training had taken them before. Could you maybe explain, for my own benefit, as well as our listeners, a little bit about your background and where that crook in the road occurred, what it was, and how it led you off into a completely different tangent than your training ever took you?
Sure, I'll do that. Yeah, my crook in the road happened maybe a little earlier than most, because I grew up in a household with a father who was a chiropractor, and I was born in South Africa, and my father practiced an art, medical art, that was under siege in South Africa. So I stood by and watched the medical profession in South Africa try to crush the chiropractic profession.
Get out! I didn't realize that was something so oppressed of a profession.
And actually they did try to do the very same thing here in the States, as I learned later on, and many places around the world. So chiropractic came into its own because the Chiropractic Association here in America stood up against the AMA and won a Supreme Court battle against the AMA, which forced them to pay the chiropractors a lot of damages for the underhanded tactics that they used. This was about, I think, in the 1970s. But so, one of my dreams was to do what my father did. But my father said, don't do chiropractic, do medicine, and then you can do what you want. So that's exactly what I did. I went to medical school, got my medical degree, had to go through, all the stuff you have to go through in medical school, learn all the wrong stuff, but I tolerated that. And then when I finished my medical training in South Africa, I came to America to learn more about holistic medicine. Ended up in Southern California for about 18 months, working with fantastic physicians practicing the art of integrative medicine, like Dr. David Steenblock.
Oh, sure. Hyperbarics. I know him very well. Sure.
Yeah. So actually, most of my time was spent with Dr. Steenblock, and I worked as his physician's extender, which means I worked under his license for 18 months, learning everything I could from him, at the same time helping him with his practice, and that sent me out careening down this road towards being able to practice integrative medicine myself. So I ended up having to do 3 years of family practice training, because in order to get my license transferred to the States, I had to do that. I had to do my penance, and so I ended up in Tyler, Texas.
Yahoo! Tyler, Texas.
It's a beautiful city too.
I've been there. Yeah, you're right. It is.
Rose capital of America, and it's about 90 miles east of Dallas. So I never thought I would end up in Northeast Texas, because it's a very conservative area, medically speaking, and in other ways. But I did end up here, did my family practice training, and then was invited on faculty at the University of Texas here. And so I spent 7 years teaching medicine. In that time, I started a new department at the university called the Center for Nutrition Preventive Medicine. So I guess I suffered from delusions, because I thought I could introduce the concept of holistic medicine into the University of Texas. Well, they were very enthusiastic about me doing that for about 3 to 6 months, and then they finally figured out that I was practicing medicine outside of the box, right under their nose.
That's exactly right.
They just really like that. So, well, I continued doing that for about 4 years, and I was associate program director of the family practice residency program, associate professor of family practice, but I just couldn't stand the bureaucracy, so I finally left in 1997, joined up with my now wife, Cindy, and we started this, what's now called the Quantum Healing Institute in Tyler. And I was able to continue learning, again, outside the box, on my own dime, no pharmaceutical company sponsoring my training like with everybody else, all the other physicians around. And I ended up, as I said, in the Quantum Healing Institute, practicing awesome medicine, and being able to take care of spirit, mind, body, and really was also able to break away from just physical medicine, even as an alternative physician. Here about 4 or 5 years ago, when I discovered what is now called healing.
Yeah, recall healing. Boy, we're going to get into that. Your history here, Doctor, is fascinating. You came to this profession with a sinister idea in mind. I love the father's advice saying, no, you don't want to go into chiropractic. You want to go into medicine so that when you're finished with it, you can just do what you want. I like that advice, and it turned out by following it, look where you've arrived to today. You are absolutely practicing a different form of medicine, and let's sort of get into some of that right now. One of the pieces of information that glares at you as you read it is this statement. You make it, and I'd like you to try to back it up a bit to our listeners. You say, at the root of all illness are these three things: shock, stress, and conflict. Now, there's no better start than that. If that's the root of all illness, talk to us about how it is so, and it probably leads into getting into more of this issue of how you actually can heal yourself of any disease. Shock, stress, and conflict. How? How does that play into any illness that anybody ever has?
Well, there's a French physician, Dr. Claude Sabat, that made this statement too. That'll enlighten the previous statement that you just made. He says that disease is the brain's best solution to keep the person alive as long as possible. Therefore, disease is a survival program.
Oh, that's interesting.
Another statement that dovetails with that one is the statement, same physician, says to heal from any illness, it is necessary and sufficient to remove the source of conflict within oneself. Necessary and sufficient to remove the source of conflict within oneself. In other words, what he's saying there, and this is backed up by a physician, Reiki Hammer, H-A-M-E-R, a German physician who about 30 years ago made a discovery that should have won him the Nobel Prize, but instead has brought him a lot of heartache, and he's been on the receiving end of persecution from the conventional medical community, pretty much around Europe. He lives in Norway right now, still alive, still contributing greatly to what we know about this field of what he called Germanic New Medicine, what Dr. Sabat called total biology, and which is now called recall healing here in the States. So what Dr. Hammer discovered, and this, by the way, was a discovery that he made through his own experience initially, which was exactly what you said earlier. Shock, stress, and conflict is behind the vast majority, if not every disease. Now, what happened to Dr. Hammer is he had a grave tragedy happen in his family. His son, who was then 19 years old, was shot and eventually died of his injuries, was actually shot in Italy by an Italian prince, of all things.
Nice.
Like a fairy tale, but it's true. The Italian prince was never brought to justice because he was an Italian prince. So Dr. Hammer, when his son got shot, spent about 3 months trying to baby his son back to health. Took him to every hospital just about in Europe, in Germany, to have him save his life, but unfortunately that didn't work out. But Dr. Hammer went through tremendous turmoil, as you would expect any parent would, losing a son.
Oh, yeah.
And he, not just him, but his wife, too, was just devastated. Now, the interesting thing is Dr. Hammer, when this tragedy happened, when his son died, he went through 2 months of extreme stress, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, just couldn't focus on anything other than what had happened to his son, his animosity towards this Italian prince, the justice system that even in Germany and in Italy wasn't working well in those days. And so, he also had cold hands and feet, the typical signs of fight or flight response, hyperadrenal response. But lo and behold, he eventually realized that if he could change his ways and get over this, he would not survive either. So he found his peace and, woke up the next morning feeling much better, and started back into his medical practice. Dr. Harmer is a very famous German physician that at that point was famous as a surgeon for developing and designing a number of different surgical devices that are still used worldwide. And but he was also he also studied psychiatry and also studied the brain and neurology. So what was interesting in the workup of Dr. Harmer, they found a lesion in his brain, which they thought was maybe a second metastasis from what then turned out to be a testicular cancer. Sorry, I left a key piece of the story out. When Dr. Harmer woke up that morning, feeling better, he also noticed that his appetite was back. He was able to sleep better. His hands became warm again. All the signs of what we call vagotonia. In other words, parasympathetic nervous system kicked back in. But a few days later, he was showering and felt a mass in his testicle. Was diagnosed with testicular cancer subsequently. But at the same time had a lesion in the brain that he himself saw because he had a CAT scan done on the brain. But it was not like a typical metastatic lesion. So Dr. Harmer was curious that, this testicular cancer developed shortly after his son died. He thought, isn't that interesting? Maybe there's a connection between the specific emotions that he was going through, losing his son, and this cancer. And he also thought maybe there was something unique about this lesion in the brain. And maybe it corresponded with his testicle and with the particular conflict. And lo and behold, he knew enough about neurology to know that this lesion in the brain was right in the area that encodes for and controls the testicle. So you say, wow, that's interesting. The bottom line is, he eventually got over his cancer, and about 6 weeks later, no signs of cancer, just by confronting and clearing the conflict that had to do with his son's death.
That's the part of this that's extremely fascinating and begs the question. You say in the States that process is called recall healing. By whom? By you, I'm sure. Anybody else? I haven't heard the term recall healing before. How does it get over here in this country from a Dr. Harmer discovery, I'm guessing, and become entrenched in some way, shape, or form in our medicine? Because I'm not too familiar with recall healing as a concept. Describe how it gets over here and how we call it recall healing.
Yeah, that's very interesting because Dr. Harmer, in his position in this clinic in Germany at this university, he basically decided to go on a wild goose chase, as he thought at the time. But he was working in a cancer clinic, and every cancer patient that came through, literally 40,000 of them, he studied them. He studied their CAT scans of the brain, just like his own. He studied their conflicts, and also their diseases, and made a further discovery that showed that not just his cancer, but every cancer had to do with a severe shock, a massive stress, a conflict that occurred shortly before the cancer developed.
Every case, doctor. 40,000. That's one heck of a study.
That was a huge study, and as a matter of fact, he published his PhD dissertation in it at the time, which I have right here in front of me. And it's a wonderful book because he actually mapped out these findings too. So his art is called Germanic New Medicine. For those that are interested in getting his PhD dissertation, get it through a website. I think it's called newmedicine.ca. Newmedicine.ca. Now, Dr. Sabah, Claude Sabah, that I quoted earlier, was a student of Dr. Harmer's, just like many other physicians around the world were studying with Dr. Harmer at the time, because Dr. Harmer was getting 92% cure rates with cancer patients, just dealing with and helping them clear and process their shock. What was interesting, and what Dr. Harmer also discovered, is that when people have a shock like this that leads to the programming for cancer, the shock is cleared from the conscious mind and goes into the subconscious. So you often see this with people that, the thing that, they go through extraordinary traumas, and they can't remember very much about the trauma, but everybody else knows about it and can see it. So very often when we are traumatized, what traumatizes the conscious mind goes into the subconscious, and it becomes what I call a blind spot in my book. So you can't see what has downloaded into your system, into your body. Now, Dr. Sabah started teaching around the world, and it's an interesting thing. I guess this is maybe a difference between the German and the French, but Dr. Harmer is very intellectual, has a hard time teaching these concepts in such a way to his students that they can be as successful as he is. But Dr. Sabah figured out that Dr. Harmer's 5 laws of Germanic New Medicine was not the whole story. He discovered 19 additional laws that he added to the discourse, and Dr. Sabah got much better results and was able to teach his students much better. So recall healing basically resulted from somebody here in Canada saying, and America, my mentors, and I was also part of the discussion, and we said, it doesn't make any sense to call something total biology. It sounds like a high school biology course. Rather call it what it is, which is recall healing, which is healing through recall. So whether you, now subsequently, what Dr. Harmer and Sabah discovered is that every disease, whether it's a cold or whether it is a tumor, is what Dr. Harmer calls a cancer equivalent. So if you get the common cold, it usually results from a conflict, say for instance, a stink in my territory, as we call it, which means that, say for instance, on Thanksgiving, you're with family, and you just get really pissed off at your mother-in-law, who's, interfering in family business and whatever, and that insult results to the mucous membrane in the nose, which is in concert with that particular emotion. And there's thinning or ulceration of the mucous membrane, and then subsequent to that, you have the virus, the cold virus that time of year around, and so the two together are programmed for a cold. But if that same conflict with your mother-in-law goes on for 9 months, and horrible stress between you and your mother-in-law, that can result in a nose cancer or a sinus cancer. So what Dr. Harmer discovered is the length and intensity of the conflict that defines what the disease is, and what exactly the characteristics of the illness is.
Wow, you're blowing me away with this, Dr. Harmer, Dr. Sabah, as a concept. I take you back to the statement you first started with, in which you said, and I'm paraphrasing because I want that actual quote once again. I think it needs to resonate with the listeners. That disease is the body's attempt to stay alive for the longest time possible, or something. So that, what was that quote again? Because I think it sets the tone for where disease really is.
Yeah, it's disease is the brain's best solution to keep the person alive as long as possible. Therefore, disease is a survival program. And Dennis, what's really amazing is that from this you can extend it further and say that disease, therefore, is a blessing and a solution, which totally blew me away when I first discovered it, and it made such total sense. And subsequent to that, I went into the CDC records and looked up stress, as a cause of disease. And lo and behold, I found that even the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, recognizes that stress is a massive component in over 80% of disease. Now, I think it's even higher than that, but when the CDC says that 80% of disease that physicians see in their offices are stress-related, that's profound. What amazed me is to really understand how this all works, because I couldn't understand initially why would people not be aware of what programs for a disease like cancer, But then I discovered what my mentor calls the 3-stage rocket. 3-stage rocket means that what happens when we're confronted with massive stress. Say, for instance, you are, in this world 10,000 years ago. We didn't have the protections that we have today. We didn't have, we didn't have weapons and police forces and, locked doors to hide behind.
Real protections. I mean, real protections. Yeah.
We were at the mercy of nature. We were at the mercy of what do you call it? Wild animals and warring tribes, and maybe warring tribes that would like to steal our territory and steal our women and steal our children if they could. And so that's what we had to deal with in those days. So we had to have our wits about us at all times. You couldn't lay down for a moment, because if you lay down for a moment, your concentration focus, guess what? It might be lunch for some wild animal. So we don't have the luxury that we have today, where we can be totally stressed out and somehow still be protected. But imagine being in a car driving 70 miles an hour. You can't even afford to be distracted there for very long, without getting something head on. So it's very, very critical to understand the biology, and to understand that whenever the brain is confronted with a massive conflict that threatens to blow out the circuitry in the brain, then the brain will protect itself by downloading to a smaller part of itself, and then will download into, so in other words, it will go from the psyche to the biological brain, to what we call the subconscious. And then from the subconscious, it'll go to the part of the body that resonates with that part of the brain that the conflict is downloaded to. So it's what we call a three-stage rocket. The psyche at the top of the rocket, the biological brain in the middle of the rocket, and then at the bottom of the rocket boosters is the body itself. So disease will either stay in the brain as a psychological conflict, for instance, depression or schizophrenia or anxiety disorder, or it'll download to the body as a disease process, like, for instance, a common cold or breast cancer, or prostate cancer, for example. So does that make sense?
Well, how about this? There is, I think, a lesser and I'll say much more feeble attempt of the conventional medical community to describe what you've just described through a term. And I'll put that out there now and see if you agree. How about this new term? I think it's hot. I think it's only come about recently. It's called psychoneuroendocrinology. Is that medicine's attempt to try to bring in your three-stage rocket?
Exactly. That is one of the ways that they're trying to bring it in. Another way is through what's now called epigenetics. Now, here's, Dennis, this will blow you away, too.
You're blowing me away, Doc. No doubt about it. Go ahead.
This is not just conflict downloading from what happens to us during, say, for instance, the month before a cancer develops. It also is defined by what happens to us earlier in life and also in the womb. And not just in the womb, but also in our family genealogy. So, there's, for instance, a physician in France, Dr. Pieter, who does what's called family tree writing out of family trees. All she does in her healthcare, she takes people with serious illnesses and then works up their family trees with all the information that she can find. For instance, their diseases, what people died from, the secrets in the family. In other words, the family curses. And she writes it out, and she has about a 40% cure rate just from doing that. Getting that mapped out so that people can see what they have taken on. And that's what's called in conventional medicine the field of epigenetics. So epigenetics.
But just by mapping it out and doing what? Say, look, here's your genetics as I see it, and somehow that by being made aware that your genetics carries with it the potential for the disease by which you suffer from, this in some way, the revelation alone is moving the healing wand over top of you?
Yeah, it's basically healing through consciousness, but by understanding that you are on the receiving end not just of genetic information from your parents, but also of other information to enhance your likelihood of survival. So, for instance, if your parents went through scarcity, if your parents nearly starved, went through starvation. Say, for instance, you, Dennis, your family went through the Great Depression, too, or your grandparents, or whatever.
Yes, and they did, sure.
Yeah, so, that creates a conflict, massive conflicts in your grandparents that is then transferred information that's then transferred to when they're pregnant to your parents, and then through them to you.
Oh, I see where you're going with this genetic thing now. Okay.
So it literally what we're now learning is that you are not a victim to your genes. You are defined by how your genes express themselves. So we now know through Dr. Lipton, through the biology of beliefs, the book that he wrote, that our beliefs, our thoughts, our emotions, our perspectives on the world, all have a massive influence on how our genes, how our genes express themselves. So, for instance, even a child that's born with a congenital illness, what they're now showing with recall healing and all the science that I'm talking about is that we can even influence diseases after they have developed. So for instance, if a child is born with Down syndrome, and we understand a little bit about programming in the womb, we can influence how it expresses itself. And I'm not trying to say that we can cure everything that way, but we can, make massive inroads on how diseases express themselves. So now it begs the question, when we talk about cancer, for instance, breast cancer, and we say breast cancer runs in this family, somebody's family, and because grandma had it, mom had it, and now the daughter has it. Does that mean that it's all genetic, or is there another component? Now, what we know through recall healing is that every breast cancer patient has, before the breast cancer actually comes into play, what we call a nesting conflict. You know what a nest is. For a woman, home is a nest. For the man, home is property. So it's the different ways that we look at the world. So now, so there's a nesting conflict. A woman might develop breast cancer, but in that same household, if there is a massive conflict related to the territory of the man called his home, he loses his home to foreclosure and, cannot take that. He has what's called a conflict of territory, and that programs for heart disease, and he may end up with a heart attack, like Kenneth Lay. One of the stories in my book is the story of Kenneth Lay, and who was the CEO of Enron. And you remember Enron?
Yeah, oh, yes.
Yeah, I think most people out there remember that, because it was the first great scandal, first company that really took us for a ride and, set the stage for a lot of the calamities that we see now in the industrial world today. But Kenneth Lay died of a massive heart attack. But if you track his story back to its roots, from kingpin, kingmaker, a friend to presidents, to Shiza on the shoe of humanity, within literally 24 hours when he was indicted, that man went through tremendous stress, because he lost his territory, he lost his name, he lost his, his status, he lost, his company, and so he went through massive stress for 18 months while he was being sued and being persecuted, maybe rightfully so, but still, and finally went to court, finally had his day in court, was found guilty, and lo and behold, he actually felt better after being found guilty, because at least he knew that he wasn't going to be in the news on the front page for the next 10 years anymore, and would be able to rest peacefully in his nice jail. Once he was sentenced, and knew that most people pretty much got out early, even CEOs that were not very ethical, and so. But he went on vacation soon after that with his family to the Colorado Rocky Mountains, and standing on the top of the mountain, looking out at his beautiful property up there, just felt so much better. And literally within 24 hours, had a massive heart attack and died right there and then. So it's there's so many stories that I can keep you busy for.
Oh yeah, let's just do this. I think you're making one heck of a case. There's a very interesting concept here, and I've been jotting down things as you've been talking, Doctor, and hopefully off air I can get some more information, like the Dr. Hammer's book and the Sabbat and all this. So the issue of recall healing is something you pursue even today. For the moment, let's say enough of a case made for how it can be that a trauma, that a conflict can result in disease, and we'll mull that over a bit. The more important message that I'd like to be able to get out for our listeners is that they absolutely can take charge of their own disease, because that's the more important message. They can take charge of their own situation and correct their own diseases, which I think we'd like to take a little short break. When we come back, I want you to be able to tell us how to get a hold of your book. I want our listeners to be able to get a hold of it. I have to even beg the issue right now and say, you got to promise to come back. This is no 45-minute discussion and over with. You'll make that promise to me right now, won't you, Doc?
Absolutely. I would love to. It would be an honor.
All right. Tell you what, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Tyler, Texas is lucky to have you. The medical school there, I believe, has orders to shoot you on sight. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that when we return. You're with Dr. Pieter DeWet. Be back in a moment with Recall Healing.
This Christmas season, give your friends and loved ones the gift of health with a very special gift from Fruit of the Spirit. Fruit of the Spirit combines 14 whole fruits with energizing minerals to give you great tasting, antioxidant-rich liquid nutrition with more health benefits than any other product of its kind. Take advantage of a special offer this Christmas. We will send a beautiful gift pack with a bottle of Fruit of the Spirit, portion glass, book, and brochure to each name on your shopping list for just $29. That's a bottle of Fruit of the Spirit, portion glass, book, and brochure to each name on your shopping list for just $29.
Fruit of Spirits gift pack is a $57 value. This Christmas season is yours for just $29, shipping and handling not included. Call 1-800-793-8714 with your shopping list, and Fruit of Spirit will take care of the rest. Call now. That's 1-800-793-8714.
This is Dennis J. Courtney, MD. Have you become confused about how best to manage your health? It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instructions, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you are looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, MD, is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-423-3002.
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AIM Impact on Your Health. Heard here on KHB 620 each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. We're here in a Wednesday version of the show, and we are. This is a topic, folks, that I think, it is just so important to bring the concept to you that I believe is packaged in a way you've never heard before. We're so fortunate to have our guest today is Pieter DeWet, who practices a style of medicine that enables patients to take charge. You who pursue alternative medicine really have gravitated toward this way to take care of you. Anyway, you put yourself in charge in so many ways. How about the ultimate way to take charge? Recall Healing is the byline for being able to do that. The author, Pieter DeWet, is with us today, and I think you can tell that the University of Texas Medical School is really glad to be rid of you, Doc, if you know what I mean. Doctor, you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you, and I guess they are. You know, it's
Oh, you cause them problems, Doctor. You cause them all sorts of problems. My listeners can certainly identify with it. I want you to be able to take just a moment to allow my listeners to learn where they can get this book. We're going to plow into just a bit of it because I think we want to leave our listeners today with a strong message that they can take complete charge of their disease. But talk to us about your book, how they get it, where they get it, what it costs, and what the book can be as I think you intend it to be, as a guide for how they can take charge of their disease.
Yeah, sure. My book is called Heal Thyself, and the subtitle is Transform Your Life, Transform Your Health. So, I chose that title to highlight the idea that in order to heal any disease, we have to go to the underpinnings, to the source of illness. And the vast majority of times it's not the physical realm, it is actually in the emotional, mental, social, and spiritual realms where we have to work in order to clear a disease up. So if you want to get a book, you can get it at the normal sources like BarnesandNobles.com or Amazon.com. I was a little taken aback because my book on Amazon is going secondhand for $175 a piece, which I thought, oh my gosh,
$175?
Well, it's new. It's the normal price, $27.99. But if you want to get, they only have 1 or 2 copies. If you want a second-hand copy, you can get it for $179. so I thought, well, that must be mean my book is in high demand. So, but now you can get it through our website as well, www.DeWet Wellness, DEWET Wellness. That's my name is spelled D-E-W-E-T, but it's pronounced DeWet.
D-E-W-I-T-T?
W-E-T.
Oh.
D-E-W-E-T. Wellness.com or shophealthybody.com. That's a much easier name to remember. So you just go to www.shophealthybody.com.
Shophealthybody.com. They won't have to worry about how to spell your name, which is different. Even the Pieter part is spelled different. So it'll drive them crazy, Doc. I'm glad you got another website.
Yeah. And then also our clinic number, the Quantum Healing Institute, 903-939-2069. I'll repeat that, 903-939-2069.
And that number can be used by the listener for what? To get more information about quantum?
To get a copy of the book.
Get a copy of the book?
So we can get it out to you within 24 hours, and or through the website, as I mentioned. And as I said, it is also available through the bookstores, Barnes & Nobles, if you order it. Now, it's still hard to get it, as I mentioned before, and for that reason, it's been priced extremely high.
Yeah, I can see supply and demand, Doc. You're in demand. So 27. The real price is 27 something, right?
$27.99. Yeah.
$27.99 instead of 100 plus. Call the doctor's office as the last resort, folks. Don't pay the 100 plus. The doctor doesn't want you to pay that either.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, just a little bit about the book.
Yeah, because we got just a few minutes left. Give us a message, because off air, folks. The doctor promises to come back. Maybe you will all have read the book by the time he does come back. The message of you can walk back. You use the term walk back any disease, and I mean any disease, by going through this thing called recall healing. Leave us with that message, and I promise to bring you back in the very near future, because we're going to be out of time here in another minute or so.
Yeah, the bottom line message is that we can reverse what ails us, and it's in our hands. The medical system as we know it is broken, and it's going down the tubes fast, as we all know. The system that was and the system that is about to be, called
the Obamacare.
So, unfortunately, that means we have to go along a third rail, which is to take responsibility for our health. And that's what my book is about. It's more than just the recall healing. It's all aspects of health. It takes you through the physical, mental, social, spiritual domains. It also takes you through what you can do in real time. At the back of the book has got a 12-week action plan that takes you step by step through revolutionizing your health over a 12-week period of time, virtually being able to reverse even serious health challenges if you do some basic things. So that is the bottom line message. Also, very, very important to understand the 5 levels of healing. There's a chapter in my book called The 5 Levels of Healing. You have to treat disease at its level of entry. You cannot treat the surface. It's a little bit like gardening. If you pull a weed by picking off the leaves, it comes back stronger than ever. You have to pull it by the roots, and that's exactly how disease works. You have to get to the root of the illness. You have to understand what that root is, and then you have to clear it. That's also the basic principles of recall healing. Is name it, claim it, and dump it.
I love that. Name it, claim it, and dump it. And is it important? Is it paramount? Knowing that stress or a conflict or some event led to your disease, is it going to be ultimately important for you to identify what that conflict is to conquer it? Or if it isn't so obvious to you, can you still be successful in walking back this disease if you can't identify it, what it is, or you absolutely must identify it?
Well, it's a critical part to become conscious of what programs for the disease. You may not know your genealogy, you may not know what happened in the womb, but it is enough to know what the underpinnings of the disease normally is, and then to understand your own story, what happened just before you got ill, and then also being able to go tap into your own history, like when we were children, because a lot of these diseases are programmed much earlier in life when they actually occur.
Tell you what, Doc, I'm embarrassed to say we've arrived at the end of our hour, but as I talked to you off air, promise our listeners you will come back, and you will, and I'll schedule that as soon as I get a chance to get off air with you. Folks, get the book. Be a willing student. I think you're finding a way to take charge of just about anything you always wanted to, but didn't know how. I think this book is the guide to maybe do that. More with Dr. DeWet in the future. You go get the book, and I promise to bring him back until on Friday. Friday's going to be a repeat show. See you on Monday talking about Epicor with Dr. Stuart Rees. Until then, this is Dr. Dennis Courtney with Dr. Pieter DeWet, no matter how he spells it, saying so long for AM Impact on Your Health.
AM Impact on Your Health is sponsored by Dennis J. Courtney, MD, Director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3000